You are here on purpose with a purpose by design.
Back to Purpose by Design. I'm so grateful to have you here today. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming back. Today, I don't just have one guest, I have two. I have two guests for you to hear from today. And what's even cooler than that is I know them both personally, and I work with them through the ministry personally, and I pastor them both personally. And so we have a mother-daughter tag team here today that are going to share their wonderful, beautiful adoption story together. That didn't just, it continues on as they all do, but theirs is unique because Sandy, who is mom, and Nichol, who is daughter, are here today, and they both work in ministry together through Victory Celebration Church, which I pastor. And they also, are you ready for this? They live together. So this is an extremely cool setup that, as far as I'm concerned, only heaven could have prearranged. So I want to welcome today Sandy Brookens. You are one of the pastors on staff here. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. I can't wait to hear your story. And your beautiful daughter, who can sing like an angel. Maybe she'll sing for us today. Will you sing, maybe, Nichol? Nichol Perricci, welcome to the podcast today. This is going to be so much fun. I want to just give you guys a moment to just tell the listeners a little bit about your current life, what you do at church, a little bit about what's going on with you so they can feel like they get to know you a little bit. So why don't we start with you, Sandy? Just tell the listeners a little about you.
Well, I'm a mom now. I'm a grandmother and a great-grandmother. And this is all possible because God sent me a beautiful little redhead from heaven. He chose her for me and me for her. Although sometimes I drive her a little bit crazy. We all live together. I moved here 7 years ago. I got tired of not being with my family over the holidays and everything. So I retired. Instead of going south, I went north. If someone says, you go to Florida, I said, no, I go where my kids are, and that's Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're so glad you're here. And Pastor Sandy does so much for the church people. She does a lot in care ministry and a lot in prayer, praying for people, calling people. And even in this season where in Minnesota at this point, we're still not gathering in person, we can still be personable. And Pastor Sandy does a great job at doing that for the church family. And now Nichol, lovely daughter, the little redhead, tell us a little bit about you, please. Other than we know you're a redhead already.
Oh, right, I'm a redhead. I'm not so little anymore. So I, like Pamela said, I'm part of Victory ministry team. I have a husband who is the youth pastor at Victory, so I help him with that. 3 kids. My oldest lives in Iowa with his beautiful wife, Jordan, and my grandbaby, who is almost 2. The other 2 still live with us, but one is an adult. The other one is a senior in high school. Thinks he's an adult. But they keep me busy. And then, like Mom said, she lives with us, so she keeps me busy too. But I do whatever I can for the pastors at our church, try to keep them organized on the same page. And I also run the worship team as well as help my husband with youth.
You wear many hats, and we just wouldn't be able to survive very long without you, Nichol. And Nichol does so much to help me personally through the church, and then other ministry things like this right here that we're doing together. So I'm just so grateful to have you both. And then this neat little extra bonus is that you're mother and daughter. And on top of that, adoptive mother and daughter, really. So that's what we're going to hear about today, is your awesome story. So Sandy, Mama, let's start with you. Can you share with us your story about deciding to adopt? Why did you do that? Did you have to really contemplate it for a long time, or was it pretty much right on, like, this is what we're doing? Tell us about that.
Okay. When I was 12, I was out in the backyard of my parents' house, and I always liked to go out. I'm a country girl. So anyway, I was laying there and I thought, cows, look at all the stars. And the thought came to me, you'll never have children.
Oh.
I thought, oh, okay. So I didn't think too much about it. And then years passed and I met my husband, Russ, and we got serious. And he said to me, I don't know if you want to marry me or not. And I said, why? And he says, because I can't have children. I said, oh, that's okay. I said, I knew when I was 12, I wouldn't have children. And so we did get married. And there was always a hope, but, you know, that's fine. I became a Christian second year into our marriage. And anyway, Russ and I talked about adopting. In our church. The Assemblies of God had a home for women who weren't able to keep their children. And so we started the process, and took a long time. Sometimes it was frustrating. We didn't go through local because it took forever, and they were, you know, they just weren't encouraging. So it took a little while, but my pastor asked me, when are you guys supposed to hear from the adoption agency? I said, I don't know. I said, I thought for sure by now. Oh, okay. So 2 weeks later, I get a phone call, and I found out my pastor, he's a big Italian. He's like a godfather. And I found out he made a phone call. And so I got a phone call in the afternoon after work. And it said, hello, Sandy. I said, hello, brother so-and-so. I said, how are you? He said, fine. He said, I just want you to know that you and Russ are the proud parents of a little baby girl, red hair, blue eyes, and she is born the 14th of March, 15th, sorry. And I said, the 15th of March? He said, yes. I said, that's my birthday. So she was born on my birthday. Oh. Yeah. So 3 months, she was, she's about 2 months old then. And so then we packed up the car and we took off for Missouri. And was a long ride. Didn't know what it was going to be like, but we were ready. And when we arrived at the foster home, Lois, who had taken care of Nikki, said, I'm so glad you're here. I've been telling your daughter all day about mommy's coming, mommy's coming. Aww. And she said, and I've played tapes to hear your voice and stuff. I said, oh, that's nice. She said, well, she's in bed right now. I said, don't wake her up. She goes, are you kidding me? She waited all day for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she went in and brought her out, and I'm like, oh. And so anyway, she said, it's time for her bottle, but she won't take a bottle for anybody except me. And I said, oh, okay. So I just sat down in a rocking chair and was holding her a little bit. And she said, here's her bottle, see if she'll take it. Well, let's say she took it right away. And
Yes.
Lois started to laugh. She goes, well, she knows who her mama is.
Oh,
So that was my first meeting. She went back to bed. I was up 3 or 4 times that night, just walking back in her bedroom, looking at her and thanking the Lord for my little Nicole. And
man.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. So you stayed. Did you stay in the foster family's home that night?
Oh yeah, we stayed for a couple days.
You did.
Because
That,
we had to go to court.
okay.
Yeah.
And they opened their home to you and let you come on in and share with them. That's really unique and precious.
Yeah, and we're still friends to this day.
You are.
Uh-huh.
That's another good story. You're still
Yep.
friends. So how do you stay connected? Did you say Lois is her name?
Lois, yeah. We write letters to each other here and there. You know, she lets me know what's going on with her life. And she's adopted, I don't know how many children, plus she has her own. And plus she takes care of all these dear little sweet babies that come in. So they have a good start in life with her.
That's really cool. And so what was the thought going through your head as you were holding your daughter for the first time and she's drinking the bottle, which up until then, only Lois was good enough. What were you thinking? That must have been just time stopping in that moment.
Yeah. You know, it was all sort of surreal.
Yeah.
Something that I had dreamed about, you know, and now it was there, were manifested.
Yeah.
So, yes, so my little, they called her Peach Bottom, because when you rocked her to sleep, you had to pat her bottom, not light, you had to pat it hard. And so her little nickname when she was little was Peach Bottom. So, but yeah, things were fine. Russ was in love, yeah.
Okay,
So
love.
then we drove back home, and when I got to the church, I didn't get to see her till church service was over. She just passed through the whole congregation.
Oh, what a beautiful story. Wow. And when you tell it, I can tell by the sound of your voice that it's like you're reliving it. Like you can remember the feelings and you're back in the moment. I can tell by the way you're sharing it. That's really special. So in adoption, being that, we've adopted 6 and we've always used the term, and it wasn't us that came up with it. It's a common term that there's the biological parent or biological mother or father, so we'll say mother, and then there is the heart mom. And heart mom means you came from my heart, because I didn't give birth to you, but I did in the essence of I birthed you in my heart. And so I've heard that term so many times, and I really, really appreciate it and love it. And I would just like to ask you, as another heart mom, how that term fits with you. What do you think about that terminology of heart mom?
I think it's very true, because people say, well, when you adopt a child, you know, it's not the same as having a biological child. Well, I love her just as much if I would have carried her 9 months.
Yeah.
Plus, I didn't have to go through the pain of birthing her.
Right.
But Yeah, but these people, they're just people. There will always be people who don't understand adoption. They may not agree with your choice, but you do what God tells you to do, and that's how you become a heart mom.
That is so good. I love that. That's very true. And you couldn't love you. Could you love Nikki anymore? Could you love? Well, she's Nicole to me. She's Nikki to you. Could you love her any more than you do?
No, she's sitting here across from me, half smiling. So I drive her nuts at times because I'm a quirky person. She calls me, tells everybody that I'm a trip. So, and she's sitting there just shaking her head. Yeah. So, but I love my Nikki girl. She takes care of me. I've come across some illness the past 2 years, and her and her husband Donato, and even the grandkids, have stepped up and helped me through a real rough time. So I'm just thankful to her. I'm just very thankful. God couldn't give me anybody. I can't imagine my life without Nikki. I mean, I could cry right now if I thought about it.
That's
But
okay. We'll all cry together.
yeah, she's my little sweetie. So
Oftentimes over the years when your daughter has been singing, with the worship team or doing a special song for an event, whether it was just a special song at the end of service or singing something at a Christmas service or a wedding or whatever, you are usually kind of misty-eyed. Why is that?
because she has a voice from heaven.
Hmm.
God anointed her with that. And I look at her and I think, that's my girl up there singing.
Yeah.
But she's talented in so many ways. And I thank the Lord for the confidence she has. Did she have an easy life? No. But God helped her through it all. And here we are, one big happy family. She's laughing.
But you guys are one big happy family. And that
Yep.
is so obvious to anybody that knows you. And even people listening today that might not know you, they haven't even heard from Nichol yet, but just what you're saying and how you're sharing, you're sitting across from each other and she's laughing or shaking her head or whatever. I mean, you guys, you are a happy family. Beautiful definition of it. And so, Nichol, I want to hear from you. The listeners want to hear from you. Yes, you can unmute yourself. Please do so we can hear you. Hello, Nichol. So we've heard mom's side. Do you ever remember it having a time in your life when you had this moment that you were like, well, I'm adopted? What does that mean? Or was it always just part of life for you?
For as long as I can remember, I mean, it was never anything that was kept from me or anything like that. I grew up knowing I was adopted. It wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't really a big deal. I had my moments when I was little and used it as, you're not my real mom, blah, 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 just being a brat. But other than that, no, it was always something I grew up knowing it was just part of my life. And I had the advantage of, we go to reunions and there's a lot of redheads in that family. So I never really felt out of place because there was always people that kind of looked like me around. So it wasn't like I was a sore thumb sticking out.
Sure.
Yeah, so I always knew, and I don't feel like I was treated any different by any of my family.
That's important. And it doesn't sound to me that it was ever something that you were embarrassed by or ashamed of or anything like that. It was just, hey, this is who I am. This is my
Right.
life. A lot of statistics, Nichol, that I've read will say that happiness for children, and they'll put a statistic up about like for you know, not all biological children, but biological children and their happiness in the home versus adoptive children and their happiness in the home. And oftentimes the adoptive children are actually happier. And, you know, I can only imagine that that is, has a lot to do with the parents that are raising them and how they treat them, but also probably something just really special inside that child's heart, just knowing how blessed they are to have the home that they
Right.
have, you know. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we did know as far as back then was that my biological mom was very young. So, you know, if you look at, it's very common nowadays for young moms. Back then it wasn't. And when it was, I am very grateful that abortion wasn't as big of a thing back then. I said,
Yeah.
because, you know, I might not be here. Adoption was an option, and I'm grateful because being young, you don't have those abilities to really take care of someone. And so I'm grateful that they made that decision. And the funny thing was when mom would see people from her past or whatever, they'd look at her, well, I can tell she's yours. She looks just like you. And we'd always just look at each other and smile and be like, yeah, okay. You know, so, you know, we always knew God put me in the right family because I fit.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. And I remember saying that to you guys, seeing you sit together at a table shortly after you started coming to Victory. And I didn't, you know, I was like, yeah, mother and daughter, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up, you grew up feeling like you fit. You were happy. You knew that you were where you were supposed to be.
Yep.
But tell us some more about your childhood. What was life like growing up, Nichol, growing up Nikki? Do you have siblings?
I do not have any siblings. Well, adoptive wise.
Sure.
And you know, I had two cousins growing up, and we were very close. One lived with us for a while, but we lived close enough that it was a bike ride. And I probably would say my younger years up to teenage years, I was with them all the time. I mean, they were either at our house, I was at their house, we were riding. So it was just, they were my cousins. And I would say growing up, we were a lot more like sisters, especially Anna and I, who was older. We always picked on Tammy. She was the younger one, but that's just, so it was almost like they were siblings because that's how we got along.
Right.
And then I have cousins on the other side that are quite a bit younger than me. So, you know, if anything, I was more of a big sister to them. But yeah, we did family reunions. Like I said, I never felt out of place. Had a normal kid's life. I mean, I went to the pool. I went running around, and, you know, back then you could run around the neighborhood and it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
So, you know, out till the street light was on and then you were home. So I don't feel like I ever had any kind of difference as far as because I was adopted, like was this way. I think it was just like any other kid my age.
That's good. Now, your mom had mentioned that there were some difficulties, and just because listeners might be going, well, mom said she had difficulties, but she's saying everything was great. Could you spend just a, you know, you don't have to tell everybody your
my
dirty
difficulties,
laundry, but share a little bit about what some of those difficulties might have been.
Most of my difficulties came in my older life, after high school.
Okay.
I had my oldest when I was 18. So that was, I wouldn't say a struggle because I was very old for my age.
You were
So
mature.
having a kiddo that young wasn't as big of a deal. I mean, I would say that my mom did most of the raising of Jeff. They're very close because of that. I would work and she would keep my kids. I mean, we lived, what, a 1/10 of a mile away from each other at that time. So I just drop him off, go to work. You know, I've been through a few divorces. I have 3 kids, you know, and it's been crazy. But, you know, I always knew that if I called mom or dad, they were very supportive of whatever was going on in my life.
Okay. And your husband Donato, who your mom mentioned, you didn't just like meet him random somewhere. You actually met him when you were still in high school, and then as destiny or purpose by design would have it,
Right.
you guys ended up coming back together again. And that is a beautiful story. And I love how you keep, you know, like, okay, mom helped you with your oldest son. You went through tough things and transitioning into adulthood. We were married. That marriage didn't work out. You know, you shared this, and thank you for being so transparent. But then all of a sudden, this wonderful man who now is your husband, you knew him before you knew anybody else.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that story, because now you guys are all living together, and it just, you know, Providence, how it all came back that this is the way for you. I think the listeners would love to hear a little bit about that.
So Donato and I met in youth camp. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. My youth pastor was connected with my husband's youth pastor, because it was his youth pastor at one time. So we had camp. His group, my husband's group, came from Minnesota, and they were our, for lack of a better word, entertainment. They did our worship, they did drama, they did skits, you know, all that for us for camp. So we met there. And then, you know, of course, back then there wasn't cell phones and all that fun stuff. So we went back to Minnesota. My parents actually that summer, or I guess it was closer to the fall, brought my girlfriend and I to Minnesota to visit colleges, but really to visit the boys. We visited a few colleges. We have pictures. And then Donato actually moved to Pennsylvania. Lived with
Minnesota, for anybody that didn't.
He was in Minnesota, right? And he moved to Pennsylvania, I believe, my senior year.
Okay.
And he lived with my youth pastor for a while. He worked there. He stayed there. Tried to date me. I was too busy. I was still living life. Kind of gave him the shrug off. Then, of course, I got pregnant, got married. And then when Jeff was 3 or 4, Donato moved back to Pennsylvania from Minnesota. We kind of dated for a little bit. But I was not in the correct headspace. Having a guy come and try to take care of me was weird. I've always had to take care of myself, and the fact that somebody came in and wanted to take care of me was weird, and it kind of freaked me out. So I pushed him away pretty quick. He came back to Minnesota. I went through life, had 2 more kids. My last divorce, I happened to hop on Facebook. I would say Donato's always been somebody in the back of my mind. So yeah, we would travel from, you know, we lived in Iowa at the time, the kids and I. So we traveled to Pennsylvania to see grandma and all the relatives. We stopped at a hotel. I think it was Brownsville, Indiana, or something like Brown something, Indiana. And we'd always order pizza at the hotel, go swimming, that kind of thing. And the pizza place that was there was called Donato's. So he'd pop up even when I wasn't trying to.
Yeah.
So I got on Facebook when my last marriage ended, just out of curiosity. It took me 3 or 4 times to actually get his name right. When I punched his name in, believe it or not, there's several Donato Perriccis in the world. A lot of them are in Italy, it is a family name. But there was one picture, when you go on Facebook, you can see their profile pictures. And it was funny because his profile picture at the time was his picture, but it had one of those frames around it, and it said, have you seen this guy? It was pointing to him. It was kind of funny. So I knew it was him by his face, obviously. And so I just kind of messaged him, and it kind of went from there. We dated for 2 years before we got married.
And how long have you been married?
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years.
Yep.
Now, when he came back into your life,
Yeah.
you had children.
Right.
And so how did you guys blend that together?
I felt like it went really well. I mean, he would come down to visit. He had the kind of job that he could travel, do it from pretty much anywhere. He's an IT guy. Mm-hmm. And so he would come down and stay down there with us for weeks at a time, or come down for the weekend and hang out. And so we did he went to the kids' school stuff and everything else. My oldest was 18, getting ready to graduate. He had very much always been the protector of the house. So him and Donato were more of a friendship than anything. And, of course he was watching. He was always watching to see, this guy and how he was going to treat mom, all that stuff, My daughter and him went really well together. She really liked him. Now that she's older, she's a little stubborn. They are very much alike, and it's very scary how alike they are, because, I think she would have been, when we moved up here, she was a sophomore. She was getting ready to go into high school. So she was in that middle school age. So it's amazing to me a lot of times how much she's like him. Sure. When, she didn't grow up with him per se, younger years. And, Drayshawn, he's just a kid that likes everybody. But they get along really well. They have a lot in common. They have good conversations, which is always fun as a mom. I mean, especially a mom of kids where it's their stepdad. But I love hearing them hang out and stuff. I can just sit and listen to them hang out, and that's always fun for me.
And they call him dad. I hear them say dad. So they see him as a father figure.
Oh, yeah.
And so that has to be a real blessing to you as well.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So I know that Mom, Sandy, is muted, but I have a question for her. Sandy, my question to you is this. So you obviously knew about Donato back in the day, right? And now all of a sudden he's back in your daughter's life and appears to not be going away. Were you happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like a son to me. He calls me mom all the time.
Oh.
And so, if I need something, he takes care of me. Sometimes I frustrate him, but that's okay, because I don't understand computers or phones, but he takes care of me.
Now, when your daughter started to date him for the second time later, and then they ended up getting married, I'm assuming you were excited about that. Were you concerned at all about him, or did you know right away this guy, he's the one?
No, I didn't have any problem with it, because we have, when she was a teenager, she had met him, so that was a word that was sort of always around our house. So he was like family already.
Right. That's a very cool word you said there. He was like family already.
Mm-hmm.
So when she started, going back that direction and seeing him, dating him, and things were looking like it was getting serious, you already felt as though he was family. So you knew
right.
Good for your daughter and for her children.
Mm-hmm.
And now here
Definitely.
you all are living together. And he calls you mom, and he's good to you. When you've been in the hospital and Nicole had to go see her grandbaby and take care, help down there with the grandchild, excuse me. Donato just stepped in and was just there for you at the hospital and running around and doing things for you. And it's so, I always say when we let God be our compass, he directs our
Hmm.
life. And here, this is a perfect scenario, you guys, of how you, Sandy, let God be your compass and bring you your beautiful little redhead. And now look at how he has navigated that compass throughout your whole family, all of you together. That's amazing.
Hmm.
Yep, and now we have another little redhead.
Yes, the little grandbaby redhead. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so much fun. Let me see what our next question is. So today you live together and you serve in ministry together.
Mm-hmm.
Whichever one of you wants to jump in, but I'd love to hear from both of you what that's like. They're looking at each other as to who's going to go first. And whoever goes first, the other person needs to mute so there's no echo.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic, I would say, because in some instances, I have to direct her, which is weird
Mhm.
because of what I do for the church, and working so closely with you. A lot of times, it's things that you have me tell the other pastoral staff,
Right.
and so that's a weird dynamic of being not in charge, but being the one to tell somebody else what to do. It's easier, which is fine. It's easier when it's other people that aren't family. I mean, we have the same challenge with my husband because he has to listen to me, not just as his wife, but as somebody
Right.
that's telling him what to do ministerially, which is weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as just direction and things, but other than that, I mean, it's fun. I mean, she'll come to me with questions, like most of the pastoral staff is supposed to.
Right. They should.
Before she comes to you, and a lot of times it's like, well, talk to Pamela, that kind of thing. But I mean, it's one thing, she's in the prayer ministry, which I will say, if you want somebody to pray for you, she's the one to do it.
Absolutely.
But I think it's separated enough that it doesn't make it a family issue per se. But also being part of the same church is kind of nice because you know what's going on in each other's lives too.
Yeah. You guys really know what's going on in each other's lives.
Yeah, a little too much sometimes.
Okay. Sandy, if you can unmute yourself, like to hear from you about that, doing life together. I mean, you guys really do life together. Ministry is your life together, but then you live together. Tell us about that. She's thinking.
I know, she's pointing at me. Well, I can't say that ministry together. I mean, she has things that she does. I have things that I do, but then there's also times we share. I mean, she's another one of these techie who takes care of me when I don't understand things. But yeah, so it works out well. There's times I go to my room and shut the door tight, and my daughter knows that I'm not happy right then. But we get over it. I mean, we never really have words with each other.
Oh, that is beautiful. You never really have words with each other. I mean so you're giving each other space to be who you are.
Yeah, because I don't eat enough because of the sickness I've been through, and I get this finger pointed at you. What did you eat today? What did you eat today? Or she'll walk through the door with a big plate of food, and yeah. So, but it's all good. It's all. She's sitting here just laughing.
And that's
So
because you're living together. You know, if you weren't together, then she wouldn't be walking through the door as often with that plate of food. That's
no.
it's a very special dynamic of your family. How you guys the origins, but even to today, how you're all in ministry together. And so that would be no different as if you were all in business together, right? It's similar. So you're all in this doing the same thing together, different things from whether it's the techie stuff, the prayer stuff, the youth ministry, whatever, worship, it's all in under that same umbrella, as if it was like we all work for 3M, right? But then you're all at home together, and it's a beautiful thing how you guys all blend as a family. And I just really want to highlight that, because it's not like they live in this 10,000 square foot home either. They live a little home. But they don't have this big sprawling metropolis. And there's one adult child, really two adult children, because their youngest will be of 18 sooner than later. And so there's these two younger people that live there. Then you have a married couple. Then you have grandma there. There's just a lot that's going on there. And yet you guys just ebb and flow together. You know, like, you know, you're just there. That's life. This is what we do. And
we're family.
Family. And
That's what it is. Family.
Family.
Yep.
I love highlighting that, Sandy, that it is all about family. And in this month that we're bringing all this awareness, look at what God has done. Look what heaven has done. I mean, I don't care, call it the universe, whatever, but it's, you guys have been divinely placed together, and you can't shake that. That is. And it's so obvious because of how you all are interconnecting. There are families that could not do what you do. There would be no way they could live together. They'd kill each other. And you guys do it so beautifully. And I have another question, but I'm going to start it with you, and then Nichol can tell us her story. But a while back, your daughter decided to reach out to ancestry.com and find out about anything that she could biologically, because back in that day and in my husband's day, there just wasn't a whole lot of information from the biological family like there is now, you know, where there's a lot more information, whether it's medical or whatever. It just is easier now to get that information than it was, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Things are different in that end of adoption, which I think is great to make aware of, because it's important for that adoptee at some point, if they want that information, that they can get it and fill any gaps in their lives or in their medical history or whatever that they might want. Now, when my husband decided to track down his biological or birth mother, it wasn't even his idea. His mom was really on him about doing it. Don't you want to do it? Don't you want to do it? Don't you want to do it? And he was like, no, not really. It really isn't aching in me to do. It's not that I have hard, angry feelings or anything. I just really don't want to do it. But she really wouldn't stop. She really, really wanted him to do it. And the funny thing was, his sister was also adopted, and she was gung-ho about it for herself. And making connections for her really didn't ever happen. And for my husband, it was just like that. I snapped, if you heard that. He found her really quickly, and was able, against really, it sounded like in the beginning, there were people in her family that were very opposed to him walking into her life. And through all of that, it just happened. And it's really quite a story. And you can hear that on his podcast when I interviewed him. But I bring that up because my mother-in-law, Betty, was so man, she was on it. She wanted this to happen. She wasn't intimidated by it. In fact, she would say, I am so thankful for her, because if she had, you know, if abortion had been an option that she could have chose, I wouldn't have had a son. And I'm so grateful for her, because she gave him life and I got to raise him, you know, and in the end, they ended up having a good relationship together, which I feel like was really unique, for him, for my husband. But not all adoptive parents, I found out, feel that way. They can be very threatened by a child wanting to pursue that. They could feel like they could get left behind, like they're not going to need me anymore. I'm not going to be as important. They're going to find that blood is thicker than water. How was it for you, Sandy, when Nichol started down that path?
Well, I came home from rehab after about 6 weeks. And so she's just bouncing off the wall. I got to tell you what happened. I've been on an adventure. I got to tell you what happened. Anyway, then she told me about the ancestry thing. I don't even think I remembered that Jeff and Jordan got her that for Christmas, and her son and daughter-in-law. And I said, what? And then she started telling me that she had got some results back from ancestry.com. And I'm not gonna steal her story, but it turned out well. When I was younger and she was younger, I thought nobody better try to come and take her away from me. If I even hear about it, I'm going to disappear with her. And I meant it, you know. So I'll let her finish.
But as far as you, Sandy, how did it affect you in any way? Were you finding yourself excited with her? Were you feeling threatened? Were you encouraging her? How did it affect you as mom? Because you're mom, you've always been mom.
Yeah. No, it surprised me, but I was happy for her, because she always wanted to know about her birth parents on account of medical reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy for her, but also I'm glad she's in touch with her dad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ask her any questions about her family or anything like that. I figure if she wants to tell me something, she will. I might say, have you heard from your dad? And she'll say, yeah, he texts me. But to me, that's her private life, and that's something that's hers.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't need to know the details, although I always like all the details, but I've had to put myself back from that. But yeah, no, I didn't feel threatened at all. No, I can't say I feel threatened.
And that's so encouraging.
That's her daddy.
Yeah, that is so encouraging for other people to hear. And for the listeners, when she's saying dad, she's talking, of course, about the birth father or the birth dad, not Russ, who raised her as dad. So Nichol, okay, ride this on home for us. Share with us what that was like for you and what it's like right now. What's going on?
Okay. Well, I would say, it's been something that, it's been a fact of my life growing up. It was never a push, it was like, oh, I got to find this out. I got to find this out. I never had that. I would have instances where I would get on like the adoption registries, fill out the information more as a, let's see what I get back, if anything. That's been over the last, I'm old, 20 years. Maybe once every couple years I'd jump on just to see, and I never really got any kind of results. I got like well, this could be you type thing, a couple years ago. But Jordan and Jeff, Jordan's my daughter-in-law, they had done this for her mom. And just more out of curiosity, she's not adopted or anything, but she did it for the fun of it, to see what there was. And I had gotten to talk to them about it a couple of times, and I'm like, yeah, it's something I've always wanted to do. But like I said, it's never been, oh, well, I'm going to do this type thing, you know. It's never been a push, because I've always said, well, like my mom said, for medical reasons, it would be great to know, because I have 3 kids and now I have a grandbaby, and a
Right.
lot of things skip generations, and, you know, so you have that, and it'd be nice to do those things. I always thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to, you know, where did I get my red hair from? Do I have anybody that sings? You know, that kind of thing. So not this past Christmas. Oh no, I guess it was this last Christmas. I feel like this year's been really long. They bought that for me for Christmas. Was the kit to send in. I didn't actually send it in till March or April, just because I just didn't think about it. And so I finally sent it in, you know, got an email, you know, with COVID and everything, they didn't have as many workers, whatever. So it took a while to get it back. And I had told Mom about this, but when she was sick, when she was in the hospital and stuff, and this last time with her knee, you know, she doesn't remember a whole lot of stuff here and there. I mentioned it every once in a while, but it wasn't a push thing. So while she was in rehab and stuff, I get the email back from Ancestry. And of course, they break it down where you're from, what you are, which, you know, of course, growing up and being adopted, yeah, I have red hair. I have fair skin. I have freckles, you know, so you have an inkling of some of your lineage, but you don't really know.
Right.
So it came back, and of course, you know, it came back from Wales and Ireland, a little bit of German, 1% Jewish, which I thought was amusing. And then with that comes, when you go on there's an app and there's a website. But when you go on it, it gives you all these people that you match with. And, you know, the first night, I mean, there was like 1,000 people on this list, and I'm like, holy buckets. And so, and it breaks it down, like, you know, like I had 2 people that came up as close matches. They did not say first cousin, third cousin, fourth cousin, because it goes like the whole way down to 5th, 6th cousins. But these 2 people were close matches. I messaged the one, and I was just like, it probably took me 2 weeks before I even messaged anybody, because it was just, I think I told you, I said, it's overwhelming, exciting, weird, stressful. It was just a lot of information, and it was odd to say, okay, these people, you know, have a blood connection, which is something I've never gotten to have, but it was never something that was a big deal.
Right.
So I contacted this one girl, come to find out, I think she's about 10 years younger than me, come to find out, she is also adopted. So she had kind of been through the process and everything. She asked me a question, which people, I don't know if anybody ever asked me the question. I don't know if I remember, but she was like, well, what do you want to get out of this? And I said, you know, I've never had a reason to answer that question. So I said, I really don't know what to tell you. And so we went through a bunch of stuff. I ended up contacting the gentleman, but he doesn't check Ancestry. I found out he doesn't check Ancestry every once in a while. Sherry, who is the young lady that I got connected with, kind of pinpointed it. She says, well, for what I can tell, you're either my sister or my aunt. So I'm like, okay. So she ended up sick with some issues. So we haven't talked for a little bit because she's been in and out of the hospital. So I ended up contacting one of the girls that was a first cousin. And apparently she's the one that has all the information because I got a hold of the right person. So it ended up the gentleman that was a close match for me is actually her father. And so she had a bunch of information. She was like, well, let me talk to my dad. And she asked me, you know, where I was born, when, you know, obviously when I was born, and everything, so that she could kind of connect the dots. When she originally came back to me, she says, well, it's one of two things. She says, either you're my dad's niece. So she told me, Kevin, is either, could be your father, or Teddy is your father, which is their dad, because he likes young girls.
Oh,
So I'm like, oh, how fun. So it was a little back and forth here and there. And then finally, I guess Wayne, who was my uncle, talked to Kevin directly and pinpointed time frame. And from everything that we know right now, and as far as we know, Kevin is my dad. He was young. He was 16. Met a girl in Chicago. She got pregnant. Her parents sent her away to have a baby.
Yeah.
And so that's, and everything matches up. I have yet to do anything further, just because it's, you know, it's when, okay, well, I know this right now. I've just always been, like I said, I've never been very pushing anything. So, I know from his Facebook who his mother is. His father has passed away. And he has 2 kids. It does end up that Sherry, it would be my sister, which is the young lady that I spoke to the first time.
Okay.
So it's been interesting. It's been, like I said, it's been weird. It's been, yeah. So I talk to Kevin. He'll text me every once in a while. He sends me pictures of the raccoons that he feeds around the house, which my daughter loves because she loves raccoons. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's weird. Yeah, it's still weird. It's still in the weird phase. It's an adventure. It's interesting.
So as you've gone through all of this, I can only imagine how overwhelming that could be sometimes. Have you felt like mom, since you live together, she's right there, has she kind of been like home base as for you, or has it been awkward to try to differentiate to where what is family, or has it been or I have to keep this part of me separate? How have you kind of navigated through all of that?
I don't feel like I have to keep it separate. I guess in one instance, it's odd. It's, you know, I tell her things here and there. I mean, I don't really tell a whole lot about anybody about it. I have one girlfriend who I texted one day, says, I need somebody I can be overwhelmed with.
Sure.
And so I told her the whole story. And this is when mom was still in the hospital.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not, I don't know. I don't really talk a whole lot about it, period, with really anybody. I've always kind of been a private person to some extent. So I just don't. I mean, you and I have had conversations, and you know, when I want to blab, I blab, and then I just don't talk.
Right. Yeah. I feel like this has brought a lot of awareness to kind of the end game, if I could say. How if I do this, what is it going to be like in 20 years? What is it going to be like in 30 years? There are stories out here like this to empower you and encourage you. And I hope and I pray, dear listener, today that it has done that. And you can see that there is a purpose by design in families and in including adoption, including foster care. And in fact, when Sandy said, getting into foster care, you can do that to just be a foster mom, to help be a bridge for a child in transition. But there's also wonderful programs in each state of fostering with the intent to adopt or be a permanency for that child. And that is not nearly as expensive as other adoption options are. So, and you might not end up with a baby then. You might end up with a kid that's 2, 3, or 4, or 5, but you know what? They need a forever home too. So I hope this has encouraged you to have a greater awareness or to step out in faith and take that plunge if you're considering adoption, or if you are an adoptee and it has caused you to have some confusion. I hope hearing Nicole's story has been helpful to you. And of course, reach out to her if she's pretty smart gal, pretty wise, could give you some direction, as well can Mom here, Sandy as well. So thank you, Sandy and Nicole, for being here today and sharing your beautiful Purpose by Design family story. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If this has been a blessing to you, let me know. Please share the story as you go. And we will see you again next time on Purpose by Design. Remember to be the salt and the light everywhere you go. See y'all later. Bye.
Pamela Henkel is the founder of the Purpose Center. Pamela is a mindset mentor, author, speaker, minister, and transformation coach. Her weekly podcast, international radio show, and television show are a lifeline that changes lives and inspires people to discover their individual potential through realizing their purpose by design. Pamela is a natural motivator and has shown many how to find their niche and transform their lives. Although success is an uphill battle, Pamela gives the necessary strategies to flourish, cheering you on every step of the way. Pamela shares from her personal experiences, education, and life as a woman in leadership, utilizing decades of knowledge. Taking the approach of, let's have coffee and chat, she will awaken your dreams and purpose by design. Are you ready for Pamela to help guide you? Email us at purposewpamela.office@gmail.com or go to her website at purposewithpamela.com.